What's up, guys? I've got my close friend, Tim, the founder of BeSmartee, an incredible mortgage automation platform that we have been a lucky client of for many years. So excited to talk to you today. There's so many things we're going to talk about, all things mortgage tech and all kind of the ecosystem today. But, first things first, Tim, man, what's up, first of all? And then second of all, give me the background. Where did this crazy kind of platform come from? When did you wake up one day and say, hey, I'm going to build an incredible mortgage automation platform? Give me the story.
Well, first of all, what's up, Apurva? Hope things are well. So good to know you all through all these years. And thank you for the kind comments, by the way. So the story let me start off the name of the story. So this was 2007. This is right when New Century went under, if you remember that whole event. Got me really curious about the origination side of the business. At the time, I owned a nationwide appraisal title escrow notary service company. And I knew a lot about the back end, but had no idea about how to work on the front end, origination processing, right? Closing and funding. So I just got curious, started reaching out to clients, started learning more. Ultimately, right, what really triggered me to do this was we were starting to get a lot of complaints from borrowers. If you remember back in the days, there was pretty much two people you'd meet, the appraiser and the notary agent. Both, people, our employees that customers and borrowers would meet. They'd never meet the loan officer. You remember, it was very rare. A lot of business was doing over the phone. But we started getting a lot of sob stories that came in. I don't know what a negative amortization mortgage is. I'm going to lose my home in 15, 20 years. So again, it got me really curious about okay, how's that side of the business work? And as I dug, deeper and deeper, there was an event that happened in the global FinTech space, if you could even call it back then FinTech. There's a little company called Mint.com. They were aggregating bank account information, sharing it back to consumers so they have a consolidated view of their finances. And it got me really curious. And I said to myself, gosh, if that data could be sucked in electronically, why do we ask for bank statements that could be manipulated, that could be incorrect, that is just tedious to get through the process? What about HOA data? What about HOI data? What about income and employment, right? So this was back in 2007. Source data. Let's get the data from the source. Let's turn our borrowers into verifiers of data versus providers of data. And that's how the idea for BeSmartee was born.
That's awesome. And so, I was lucky enough to start working with you in what I believe was early days of BeSmartee, right? And, without kind of broadcasting who kind of the arms race or who at least inspired the arms race, let's call it Space Shuttle Mortgage, right? So, they kind of built a platform that every mortgage company said, hey, we either need to adapt and have a version of ourselves or, consolidate or license technology or whatever the case may be. And so you built BeSmartee, right? And so it immediately turnkey gave us an effective mortgage automation platform on the originations, and that helped us unlock other sides of the business because that box was right. And that's been incredible. So let's fast forward kind of more to recent history. It's been about a decade, right? Safe to say, at least 10-year journey.
Pretty close. I can't believe it. It was 2016 when that space shuttle company launched.
Yeah, that's right. So it's been, we're coming close to it. So let's give me your perspective. So I'm going to kind of segment some of the platforms out there. There's point of sale solutions, which is like this mortgage automation kind of front end consumer facing side of the business. There's LOSs, which is the loan origination software, right? Which is where, companies transact loans, organize loans, record keep, and underwriting and loan processing and all the kind of third party or under the hood things start to happen rather than third party under the hood, right? And then there's kind of like mortgage tech, like marketing tech, right? There's players in the space that do mortgage marketing solutions and things like that. So there's kind of like a few different players that kind of cover a few bases, and there's competitors in each space, of course. What do you think? Give me the 10,000 foot view of what is modern technology for mortgages that matter? What matters today? First of all, right? If I'm an independent mortgage company, whether I'm small or big, what should I be thinking about? What's kind of the ecosystem look like, right? And then we can take it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I always tell people, right, there's really three really core systems to any mortgage tech stack. Doesn't matter, broker, independent mortgage bank, FI, right, bank or credit union, type of lender. First and foremost, I'm going to give it to you in the order of priority. Right, I look at this, there's a lot of technologies out there, and I look at it from must have, can't live without, all the way down to nice to have, right? At the very top of the list is obviously the loan origination system. The LOS is a 10. It's a system of record. It's where you prove your compliance, where you close and fund loans. It's essentially the brain, right? It's everything aggregates to it. So that's first and foremost. Very, very close to that. I call it like a 9.5, if not a 10. It's the product and pricing engine, right? It really depends on your model. If you deal with 1 or 2 investors, you might be able to get away with rate sheets. If you deal with a handful of investors and you're brokering and banking and so forth and so on, you're going to need a lot more sophistication managing the overlays of, eligibility, pricing, fit, etc. So the product and pricing engine is very critical. Third on the list is the point of sale. And me being a point of sale, CEO of BeSmartee, I'll be the first to admit, right? We're not there yet. It's not like the absolute must have. Right? I rate about an 8.5 to a 9. However, I do think as the younger generation really starts adopting, gets in that position of buying more and more, this big wealth transfer that we all know is coming, as they get into this power position, you're going to start seeing that rise up to like a 9.5, if not a 10. To be just as important as the loan origination system. But today, the point of sale, the product and pricing engine LS is what I would call as core. Now, behind that, fast followers of that, right? You have a lot of different platforms. You have the CRM, the marketing automation, the lead management. Sometimes you can find that all in one, sometimes you find it in disparate systems. But that's really critical, especially if you're looking to grow, you're looking to scale effectively, really manage to the details and get the types of outputs you're looking for day to day, right? Essentially close loans that are profitable and high quality. Retention becomes important. Then you start getting into, other mortgage systems that, such as a monitor base, where you are, they're monitoring the data, making sure you have the right cues to get back and, engage with the consumer. And I can go on and on. There's a lot of technologies out there, like you said. There's automated underwriting, there's fraud, and then of course there's just the basic stuff and services, doc generation and credit reports, state and federal tests for compliance purposes. So the list really can, doc management, right? The list could go really on and on. It's surprising when I tell new employees, especially at the company, who have never been in the mortgage space, right, what it takes to close a loan, their mind is just blown away.
Yeah.
20, 30 plus vendor systems you have to interact with, from technology to services. It's a pretty complicated ecosystem.
So if I'm a independent mortgage shop like we are, right? Matador is, right? So and I'm getting on the journey. In your opinion, what's the optimal tech stack that to get going? Because there's so much, it's overwhelming. Some of it is bloat, right? Some of it's hey, it's cool, but it doesn't move the needle for you. I'm in the camp of a good point of sale, biasly, you need it. It's importable. It's critical. We built our whole business around it, right? Obviously an LOS, that's necessary no matter what. But what else? Give me, what's your perspective of it?
Yeah. If I was going to go start a mortgage company, and luckily for me, I've seen these startups, right? We've had clients that are doing 10,000 plus loans a month, down to 50 loans a month, and even startups. So I've had really, been blessed to see kind of like the way different startups approach the mortgage space. Some are super well funded, take hundreds of millions of dollars in funding. Some are, bootstrapped from the ground up. Absolutely. LOS is number 1, product and pricing engine is number 2, POS is number 3, and a CRM is number 4. I think with that, you can get away with the rest. Now, if the funds are there, the budgets are there, the resources to integrate, implement are there, I would definitely start, looking at more top of the funnel solutions, where it helps you with the conversion, right? So it's one thing to get people to know your brand and come to your website or pick up that phone call. Then you got to convert. So I think that's important. Top of the funnel solution, a little bit more middle of the funnel. I would look at, middle of the funnel, towards the end of the funnel and post close. I'll look at retention tools. Yeah. Things that'll help you get re-engaged with borrowers, and tools that help you create a customer for life. I think that's the big thing that we're working on as a company over the next few years, is how do you work with that company or that borrower today? It's a transaction, you get them to that mortgage, but their life continues. They get a year home ownership opportunity. And only 1 out of 5 borrowers on average will return back to the original lender they worked with. There's a huge opportunity there for retention type tools. And when we talk about retention, I'm not talking about, hey, happy birthday, right? I'm talking about using intelligence and data, artificial intelligence in some cases, or some cases just good data, to help people become better homeowners. We can help them get into a home, but how do we help them become a responsible homeowner to hold on to that home for the rest of their lives. And we all know home's not just a place where we sleep, right?
Right.
Home's where memories are made. This is where the good and the bad all kind of collide in your lives. We got to be there for the homeowners, help them become responsible, help them hang on to that home and really get the most out of it.
So I'm going to unpack that a little bit more. I love that angle, right? Because more often than not, at least from the mortgage side, it's very short transactional. We're in their life for 30, 45 days on average, end to end. And then, if we have a good follow-on system, we're checking in on birthdays and home anniversaries. And that's a good one, right? The probability of us kind of having a good reason to stay in touch with them, first of all, is already challenging, but the probability we actually do it is low. A good LO that manages their database well and effectively is going to actually proactively go in and nurture those people. But I love where you're going with it. So give me are we talking about home health, data points on the roof, on the appliances? What are we talking about?
Yeah. So when you think about closing a mortgage, think about the data we have. You
Right.
have a complete financial picture from children dependence to income,
Blood
employment,
samples,
credit,
we got it all, right? We got it.
assets, right? And then think about the data that you get from the services. Think about just one thing, the appraisal report. The data's coming over as an XML today. The data's there. So if an appraiser says, I think you have about 7 to 10 years of effective life on your roof, what are we doing as an industry to help people prepare for that? Otherwise, it's going to be a big financial burden on people that they could have got prepared 7 years ago. Stash away money, make sure they're even aware of it. What about, that's just one simple example. If you look at the appraisal data, now look at the home inspection data. That data is coming over electronically now. The good home inspection companies, you have access on an app, the data reports there. When I bought my home, I filed it away. And the first thing I did when I moved in, looked at this home inspection. Okay, what do I got to fix? There's a lot of stuff to fix, right? This never ends. But what's most critical? For example, one thing is I had the dirt kind of higher towards the yard, but lower towards the building. That means the water was seeping down, right? And it's clogging. First thing I did was make sure I prevented issues. So we have the data. We got to help make meaning of the data, help people take action on the data, right? Day-to-day life, things get in the way. Taking care of a home is not easy work. You gotta mow the yard, right? Gotta, clear things, gotta prevent. I live in an area where we're prone to fires. Gotta make sure we clear the brushes. I gotta monitor those things. I gotta be reminded of those things. So that's what I mean by using data. We gotta go beyond just reminders, hey, happy birthday. We gotta take the data we have and translate it to something that's useful, right? And if you think about the best relationships we have in our own lives, it's not someone that calls trying to sell you something. Great, you sold me something, but they're actually genuinely checking in. What's going on? Where's life going? Don't forget about these incentives coming up from the IRS. Don't forget about these things happening, down the line. That's the type of what I like to call a trusted advisor, right? That's who you want to be, as a trusted advisor, not just a transaction.
Love that. And you hit on something already that a big piece of the puzzle is going to be AI, right? It is so hot. Everybody's talking about it. It's moving so fast. Every week, new releases, all the stakeholders are kind of adding new feature sets. And so it's hard to keep up. So I want to talk a little bit about that. But before we go into that, I want to talk about last year's tech, blockchain, right? So for a second, let's talk about there was a wave of blockchain kind of companies. There's all about kind of the moving of the data of the mortgage specifically on chain, title for sure. There's guys solving for chain. Where are we at right now with blockchain? Does it even matter anymore? Is there stakeholders still chipping away at this thing? Is it relevant in your business at all? Let's talk about that.
When blockchain came out, I felt already behind. So I did a lot of research on it. And no matter what I did, I just couldn't figure out a use case, a legitimate use case for mortgage and real estate. There are some that are pretty obvious, like the custody of, ownership of a property, Bitcoin, think about that, right? There's certain things that blockchain does really well. But at the end of the day, I do believe that blockchain is a solution looking for a problem, especially in mortgage. Yeah. Now, I'm going to get a lot of grief for this probably, and it'll be great. I want to learn more about it. But I just don't see why blockchain absolutely matters right now in mortgage and real estate. When it comes to the custodian record and the ownership, that I can see, right? But at the end of the day, a relational database, other types of normal, databases we're used to, it can accomplish the same thing. It really could. So again, there's industries for blockchain. There's use cases of blockchain. I don't see that being dominant in mortgage today. I've seen a lot of new ideas and new thoughts and new thought leaders. But the practical implementation of it, either I don't see it, and that's a strong possibility, Or someone's working on the next cutting edge and we just don't know about it yet. But for it to be dominant, I just don't see it in the near term.
Yeah, I mean, there was a wave of startups that were coming out, and there was quite a few, definitely around the chain of ownership solution and like the digital closing experience facilitated via, smart contract technology, right? Like there was like a lot of that kind of stuff going on for a little bit. It seemed to have simmered down, right? Time will tell. I'm kind of in the camp with you. Like, what are we really gaining by implementing this new way to kind of keep track of these transactions, right? Like, does that move the needle in any way? Does it make the mortgage transaction faster? I don't see it either, but like, it's interesting. So I appreciate you doing that. So like I'm not going to say it's a shiny object because this thing is real. AI is real, right? Like you can already see very interesting use cases. I've seen a lot around marketing, right? But there's a lot of like layers, automation, in terms of like, just simplistically like checklists, like a loan processor would handle or an underwriter would handle, right? Let's talk about what are we seeing? What are you seeing? Like, what is AI chipping at in the mortgage industry that's compelling today? And let's put on a crystal ball and say, what could it do based on what we've already seen?
Yeah, I want to take a step back with AI just for a quick moment, right? We're hearing about it now because of Chat GPT, because of natural language processing. It's super cool, super shiny, and it's scary good. Okay, I'll put that over there. But if you really think about artificial intelligence, it's been there for decades. We've been working, much smarter people than myself. They've been working on this for many, many, many years. But it really took a more natural way to deliver it for people to really see the power in it, right? So, that's the first thing to realize is we've been using AI, for a long time. AI's been there. Now, underneath AI, there's machine learning, there's predictive analytics, there's neural networks, a lot of different models and different use cases, right? But we'll just kind of say broad in AI. So, what's going on today in AI? There are some really strong players out there, such as automated underwriting. It's getting better by the month as it gets smarter and more use cases are carved out for it. I see AI as a way to drive behavior. And when I talk about behavior, I'm talking about, okay, so you got 100 loans in your pipe as a processing team. 80 documents just came over in the last hour. What do you work on first? Which loan's most important, right? So AI could be used to drive human behavior. So we're doing the right things at the right time. Now, AI is also contingent on a whole ton of data, whole ton of processing power, and a lot of intimate knowledge about the sector that it serves. So can you use Chat GPT today to start driving decisions? Probably not. And if you did, wouldn't be bad. It would just be very generic, right? How to prioritize things. But we need players out there to start plugging in real mortgage data, real mortgage knowledge in order to drive the behavior, drive the processes, and automate these processes in the mortgage space. Now, we step outside of mortgage specific and we look at the surrounding mortgage ecosystem. Like we all got HR companies, we all got marketing, we all got sales, we all got compliance, we all got legal, right? These are the things that every business has, regardless of what you do from a technical perspective. At our company, for example, definitely using it on the marketing side today. We're starting to look at ways to just use third-party AI to develop better, to QA better, to reduce cycle times on legal agreements. So that's where it all starts, even for a software company like ourselves. Then next year, we'll really start looking at, okay, how do we actually start building our AI? Where do we actually attack? Which is a great segue into the future. We're looking at things like a chatbot AI. Is it really necessary to have AI? Kinda. And there's great chatbots been built out there before, but with AI and the natural language processing, it really elevates the experience of how you can interact with these systems. Then you got to take these systems, you got to plug it in downstream. We know there's tons of systems downstream, lots of data that we have to standardize and aggregate. But for BeSmartee, we're looking at AI from a customer for life perspective. Again, all this data, how do we help people get the answers to the questions they have immediately? How do we actually get them engaged with questions they don't even know to ask yet, but they should be? All right. So AI is for us anyways, I think it's going to drive, again, behavior. It's going to drive the customer for life strategy that we have at our company and over the long haul.
And so like, I think about like most of mortgage, especially when we're talking about agency, Fannie, Freddie, right? It's just a set of data that's robust with all the risk cases that a loan could represent. And our job as an originator is to bring in and parse that data into a format, which is a 1003, which then can be kind of input in an automated underwriting engine. that goes, like cross references against all those risk layers, right? And then we get results that we communicate to the consumer to say, hey, like your bank statement had XYZ, we need these trailing documents, or hey, the math didn't add up on how much is in your bank account, we need more assets, those kind of variations, right? Like it's just this never ending kind of loop of like, okay, guidelines, underwriting kind of findings, and then the communication on the front line. And where I'm going with that is, I mean, it's not far-fetched that you put this data into a nice chatbot interface and those conversations going to be had independent of a loan officer, right? Yep. Like that's not too crazy to me, right?
It really isn't. I think the underlying question here is AI a threat to people's jobs? The short answer is absolutely it is.
Of course.
It is. It's a serious concern. But I would argue to say this. It's not AI itself that's going to take your job. It's people who know how to use AI.
Yes.
Those people are going to take your jobs. And, we're living in a world now where it's just not the United States, right? Even if you do business here, this is where you live, where your employees live, there's global presence. There's over 7 billion people that are growing up with AI, who are leveraging AI, who's going to use AI on a daily basis. Their people's lives are going to be majorly affected. My theory is, unfortunately, it's gone a little bit somber here, but I think unemployment is something that will continue to rise over the long haul as AI takes a hold. And it's a scary thought, but think about this. There are people in other countries, and even in the United States today, right, where you might have 10 people in a household. You got mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, you got aunts, uncles, you got kids. And guess what? Maybe 2 or 3 of them are the breadwinners in the house, right? They're the ones that got the great jobs. Everyone else can't find a job or a good job, and they take care of the whole family. You'll look at other countries that are developing, look at other countries that are even, already far along their development curve. It happens today. Like in my home country, I was born here in the US, but my home country is Vietnam in terms of, where my ethnicity comes from. And if you go there, you'll see household of, 10 people in a 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom home. Only 2 of them can actually find a great job. One that works for Google, one that works for a real estate firm or finance, right? And they literally take care of the whole family, right? It's a scary thought, but we've been there before as the human species.
Yeah.
It's happening today in other countries. It's even happened in the US, right? Think about the loans you do where there's 6 borrowers on there and they're relying on, rents from 3 rooms to make the mortgage payments. It happens today. And unfortunately, it's a risk that could happen in the future.
Yeah. And so like as a modern loan officer, right? And, I say that about myself with a grain of salt these days, but, in general, like what is the advice to keep up with the times, right? To stay relevant? I have my opinions, but I'd love to hear your perspective on, I'm a new LO entering this market, right? We're in a rising rate environment where, there's all kinds of new challenges. Loan products are tighter than they've ever been. And now this technology is coming online, right? And just like you said, it's an arms race of who figures it out and leverages it effectively. What would be the advice to somebody like that says, okay, what am I adopting? What am I learning? Where am I using these tools to my advantage?
First is the mindset. You're not a salesperson. We call sales. And yes, you get paid like a salesperson, but you really are a trusted advisor. And when I look back at my own life, for example, right, who do I trust the most, right? Third-party vendors, my CPA, my family office, my attorneys, my closest friends, my dad, my mom. They've been through it before. I know they care about me, right? This is my trusted advisor network. And right. Even in business, I belong to a CEO forum where we get together once a month. We help each other learn and grow. I created new trusted advisor networks. Well, consumers are no different. They need trusted advisors in life. And why isn't the biggest asset in your life the people that gave you that finance and not part of that trusted advisor network? You should be. That's your goal. Is if they think about home financing, home moves, and decisions they want to make, they need to be calling their loan officer first and foremost, right? And if you look at AI as I look at ChatGPT, for example, as, yeah, it's great, but it's one system that thinks a certain way, right? Call it Spock, okay? Then there's going to be another AI system, call it Einstein. There'll be another AI system, call it Newton, right? Yep. Point is, all these AI systems are like part of your trusted advisor network. But at the end of the day, you still need humans, in my opinion, to decipher through all the different opinions, all the different facts, quote unquote, all the different guidance to really make a firm decision, right? That's what your loan officer is. That's your job, is to leverage the information. Hey, ChatGPT says X, Y, and Z. Cool. Bing says X, Y, Z. Cool. Well, look, I've been doing this for 20 years. That's right. That's kind of right. Here's what they're missing, right? Here's how we bridge the gap. Here's the right decision for your life.
I mean, Very relevant. And, one thing that we found, even with like great point of sale, where a customer could get all the way through themselves if they really want to without staying, and within minutes, right? They can complete an entire inquiry application and get into our funnel pretty quickly, right? We found that many consumers, when it comes specifically to home purchase and financing, because the average person, is better than that, 2-3 years in their lifetime, 2-3 times in their lifetime will they ever buy a house, right? So as fast as they can get it, they almost want to slow it down a little bit and say, wait, okay, yeah, I can click, and I can get my mortgage and I can close next week if I really wanted to. But on this transaction, I kind of want to slow it down for a second. I want to ask a few pertinent questions that may not be black and white, right? Like, wait, we're going to have kids soon. Wait, we're going to build out a mother-in-law suite. We're going to do things that the data doesn't quite tell the whole story, right? And so that's when that human interaction is still critical, because the options then may not be on the spreadsheet, right? And it's like, hey, wait, okay, well, if you're actually doing that, wait a second, you need to think about this, right? And so, in fact, we've seen that with consumers that are applying on your platform with us, right? So like literally they'll be like, pause, hold on, I have some questions about how to answer this. Am I giving too much information? Am I giving not enough? Like, et cetera, right? And so I think specifically to mortgages, right? I think that human element, because it's such a few transactions for the average person, and it's so overwhelming, both financially, emotionally, of a commitment, right? You're talking about literally 30 years for most people, right? Like they want to know, like, hey, can somebody just confirm that I'm clicking the right button? Like, I want to have a conversation. So anyways, my point is that, like, I think there's some value to loan officers really adopting and enhancing who they are, kind of to your points, right? Like you can cast a much wider net with the marketing tech, right? And you can have a lot more touch points ongoing with your borrower and your consumer lifeline customers, right? Ongoing, leveraging the technology, right? And you can just enhance the service quality that you give by covering bases that you probably don't have the capacity to do by leveraging these technologies, right? But at the end of the day, that consumer touch point and that one-on-one conversation is still a critical piece for a lot of mortgage consumers. And I think that's something interesting. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, technology is great, but it's not end all be all, right? We at our company, we believe in people, process, philosophy, and technology in that order. Technology is last. Technology is kind of like it's like the real estate you live on. It's the kind of there. You shouldn't really know is there at all times. It should be intertwined in the way you do business, the way you serve.
Right.
You make a really interesting comment, right? People have been talking about a one touch, or not a one touch, point click close type of mortgage model, get mortgage, right? Push button. And while the technology is there today, still needs to get better. Don't get me wrong. You're right. Human behavior dictates otherwise. It sounds cool, but the reality is, I don't think we will likely, not in my lifetime. I don't think so. Where the norm is close. I just don't see that happening, because there's that human element. It's a huge financial commitment. Now, an argument can be made that if you can do all that technically and make it that easy, you should be also coach the consumer through technology to guide them to the right decision. And let's say you could. I would still, personally, I'd still want to talk to somebody. I just need a sounding board. I need someone I could trust. I need a human on the other line, right? And again, it goes back to being a trusted advisor. You're still placing people in loans, but you're not selling them, right? You're not doing data collection. You should be the ones troubleshooting, solving problems, thinking out into the future, being predictive, so to speak. And your example of borrowers still want to talk, even though they do everything online. It's the perfect example, right? We're not buying t-shirts here online. You make a mistake, all right, $35, it's gone. And right now, I can still return it. It costs me $10 to return it. That's fine. We're talking about $350,000 on average every single, that you bind someone to their whole life to. So yes, technology is great, but technology is a tool to help people help other people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm going to kind of bring it back to you guys. I mean, what's on the horizon that, you're willing to kind of share with us, what's coming for BeSmartee? Where are you guys focusing your energy with, this wide kind of space of places you can play, right? And there's a lot of kind of noise. What's the signal for you guys right now?
Yeah, I mean, for us this year and even into next year, it's just about being focused on the fundamentals. As you know, our product with the consumer or loan officer, from first name, last name, all the way to a paid appraisal and everything in between in about 15, 20 minutes. It's a lot of automation, and that automation still needs to be adopted. So we're helping our current client base and new clients say, okay, well, you have an online 1003 today. It links up to your instance of the LOS. Data will flow back and forth. They get updated. There's conditions and documents. Cool, but what else is next, right? So we have all these things that we've already built, our competitors don't have. So we're just looping back and really helping people gain adoption, getting more value out of it, especially in the time where, return on investment really matters, efficiency really matters. You can't be a superhero for forever. You can't just throw money at the problem forever. This is the opportunity to really kind of go back to the tool shed, sharpen those tools, challenge the way you do business, challenge the models you have, challenge the assumptions you have, and where appropriate, bring in technology. Or sometimes it's just a person you got to replace. Sometimes just a process change. Sometimes it's coupled with technology. It doesn't always have to be technology. So that takes us through the next, into 2024 with our existing client base. It's amazing, but we've built so many things that are already cutting edge. We just got to get more people to use it. Now, that said, we do have our eye on customer. We have this term here we call 0-30. Like you alluded to earlier, you spend less than 1 year helping a consumer get into a home. Sometimes this could be 30 days, sometimes it could be 9 months. Right. Point is that's the 0. But you put them in a loan, usually that's 30 years long. Where are you for 30 years? What are we doing to prep them? What happens in year 5? What happens when they're 5 years away from paying their home off? Right? What happens over the next 30 years of their life? That's the part of it, right? What happens? I hate to drive that point home, but here we are, the tip of the spear. We put them in this transaction that's binding for 30 years, but most of us aren't anywhere to be found for them. They're on their own.
Right.
So we're looking at that customer for life strategy.
I've yet to be impressed, and I know there's some new players in the game on mortgage servicing, right? Like nobody really stands out as like wow, this is a new, like exciting place for, borrowers to kind of keep upkeep of their transaction.
Well, think about it like this, right? Sir, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
But
servicing, does anyone here, could anyone raise their hand and say, I got a relationship with my servicer? No, you just make
can't even find
them take your home, right?
Right.
So, but how do you turn a transactional, almost like a master slave type of relationship, right? You owe someone money, you got to make it, you got to follow the rules, you got to be there, and you got to honor that agreement. But is it really a relationship?
Yeah, I mean, there used to be, you probably remember, you get your letter in the mail with your mortgage statement. I've seen guys that there was an advertising opportunity. There'd be like coupons in your freaking thing. That was like the most exciting, most sophisticated I've seen. Right. But, to your point, we've got all the data. We know the home, we know the borrower, we know we know the mortgage, we know all the data points of the mortgage itself, where they're at, amortization rate, et cetera, right? So there's so many opportunities that I think is, probably low hanging fruit. And then, people way smarter than me can figure out, okay, we can do even more, right? And it sounds like that's kind of the cusp of where you guys are headed. I don't know whether it's embedding servicing as a framework for it, but, there's something there, right? You've got it all. You got all the data.
I think a lot of it is mindset. I've originated loans in the past. I've sold things here at BeSmartee in my last company. So I've had that sales hat on, right? And of course, you want to close the deal and you want to move the next because they make more money. Totally get that. Can't hate that at all, right? We're all like that. But I always, when I used to sell, I purposely found touch points, whether it's an enterprise, because I'm selling B2B software, or it was a consumer, because, it's a mindset. I do actually give a damn.
Yeah.
Right? I do want to be there for you. And when I called a borrower back or a client, actually I'll focus on that example. If I called a borrower back after, I closed their loan, this is a long time ago, I would call them back 3-4 times a year. I would genuinely block out time to have a conversation knowing I probably won't do another loan for this person for at least a couple of years. They probably won't buy another house for at least a couple of years, but it's a relationship. Number one, you're going to build a relationship so they'll have a higher chance of them come back to you. Number two, I really genuinely care. I want to know what's going on. Oh, shoot, you're going there to, I'm going to Egypt. I'll use the example. You're going to Egypt. Oh, dude, let me send you some of this cool stuff that we found when we went to Egypt, right? You really got genuinely mindset, right? You really got to be there to serve and to be selfless. I think if you do that, you can do just fine. People will come back to you. You're going to get, if anything, you're going to learn something. And if anything else, you're going to have the satisfaction that you're there to serve, really help us.
Yeah. And, it's funny. I joke with my team all the time. You mentioned we're like advisors more than salespeople, right? I'm going to add the extra element of we're therapists, right? Like we provide therapy because these transactions are so emotional for borrowers, right? Especially when it's their first time buying a home, right? Like it's like, oh my God, this is so overwhelming. There's so many things happening, and they're scared all the way up to the closing table. And so like sometimes that's all it is. We're just this like caring individual that's plugged in and like non-tech. We're like human connection interaction to help them kind of calm their nerves to get to the finish line. It's interesting. I mean, like I said, I think today's tech is not necessarily a full-fledged threat. I think it's an enhancement, right? For those of us that leverage it correctly. What's your advice of where an LO should be paying their attention right now, when it comes to technology? There's so much. And if you have platforms that you are impressed with, feel free to drop them. Like, where am I focused? Where should I be starting with?
It depends what hat you wear. So at a mortgage company, let's say you are a originator. Your business, go find new loans and close those loans, right? I'd be looking at more front-end technologies. Data monitoring, like a Monitor Base. I think they're a great company. A good CRM, like a Bonzo. I'm really seeing that explode. Love that software.
Bonzo's doing
It's giving you the tools and arsenal to really kind of do what you need to do from whether you're consumer direct or traditional retail. So the CRM component, I think, is really critical. Education. Let's not forget about that. Are you subscribed to the newsletters? Are you actively engaged in learning? Right. One thing I purposely do, even though we're in mortgage, is I will every year, at least once a year, go to different sectors, whether it's ancillary or nearby, like real estate, or it's a little bit further down, just general fintech. You gotta just stay, educated. Now, if you are processor operations, right, you're looking for ways to effectively close, reduce risk. I'd be looking at I'd be looking at a point of sale that could actually drive downstream automation, not just a system that takes 1003 data and dumps into the OS and here you go figure it out, right?
Right.
That data should have been chopped up, organized, and packaged well before it even hits the loan origination system. I've been looking at automations where it drives behavior, like a Candor, for example. Automated underwriting. I think that's powerful. Now, if you're more close to the secondary side, I don't know too much about the secondary side of the markets, but I hear some good things about the companies like OptiFunder helping you manage the warehouse lines. Helping you, organize that, make sure that you're maximizing your margin and your negative carry or your positive carry. Now, further down, post QC, I think this is where marketing and sales, the whole organization really thinks about it. Post close, I'd be looking at point of sales and servicing innovation that's starting to work together to cater to that customer long term. It's wide, but that's where I would be looking at. And every company's going to be different. Everyone's got different pain points, but generally, right? You look at the job functions, look at what are the inputs that you need, what are the outputs you need to deliver, so it moves on to the next step, and look at those type of technologies that will help you serve. And I still believe that best of breed is the way to go. But you can't just take best of breed and expect them to work together. You got to make sure those best of breed vendors are actually got a relationship, not just we have an integration. Well, what does that really mean?
I'm gonna ask the counterpoint of that's awesome. It's awesome stuff. Counterpoint is, where do you think, if I was a tech, founder that wanted to build a startup in our space, where do you think there's opportunity right now that nobody's really chipping away at?
Well, I think customer for life. I'm going to call that out, even though we're working on that. Competition's healthy. I'm not afraid to say that. Coordination of the 20 different mortgage tech systems you log into, like true integration. Not that I can go to one place and order this and order that. That's a good help.
Zapier connection.
The data's got to come back. The data's got to move itself through the pipes. So the type of vendors that could kind of take these disparate systems and unify them and modernize it, right? Because if you've been a mortgage banker for 20 years on a certain system and you can't get off of it, I get it. But doesn't mean you should let that prevent you from innovating, right? So vendors that are helping kind of connect the ecosystem together, I think is a good starting point. But in terms of new stuff, I mean, there is one I will mention very lightly because it is in stealth mode, but we're talking about a clear to close in hours to 24 hours.
Wow.
So people are doing some really cool stuff with it. It's just how people kind of, it's what I tell people all the time. Like, look, the piano's created a long time ago. The notes on the piano, it's been like that for a long time. But gosh, there's great new songs being created every day. I remember back, I think it was during the Renaissance period, a big famous musician back then or composer back then said, I think we've created every song we could by this point. Oh no, they were absolutely wrong. Same keyboards, same notes, but lots of new music coming down the line.
In the context of this conversation, the AI musicians are now here, right? And they're putting out right? Let alone what human, music producers have been putting out for our lifetime.
I saw a really interesting clip last week. It was Nicki Minaj, and I think his name is Tom Holland, the actor for Spider-Man.
Yeah.
It's a British comedy that used AI to put a new face on actors and replicate the voice and
Oh,
tone.
wow. Like the deep fake tech, right?
This deep fake AI, yeah. And if you watch this clip, it's a couple. I'll send it to you after we get off here. It was like a 2 minute clip, but you thought you were watching Nicki Minaj and Tom Holland. The whole concept is they live in this home together, and their neighbor is Mark Zuckerberg. And there's clips of Mark Zuckerberg and how they interact as neighbors, right? But you watch this thing, it'll blow you away. It looks like it was actually those people acting out the script, and it wasn't.
Wow. And the crazy part is we're early innings of all of this. This all
We
is
really
really
are. Yeah.
new tech, right? So, Tim, this has been awesome. I'm gonna info if that's cool. If anybody that wants to follow up and get in touch with you or the team at BeSmartee and talk about, adoption of your platform. If you're anybody that's an independent mortgage company or even a mature or mortgage company, like I can't sing the praises enough about what your platform has done for us and our company. And we're excited to continue to build on it. Any closing thoughts for us?
Yeah, reach me at tim@besmartee.com. Simple as
Yep.
that. Tim at BeSmartee, double E at the end. Love to just shoot the breeze with people. I don't care if you're on, working with a competitor, I have no plans to get a POS. I just want to learn. I'm thirsty to learn and thirsty to share. And because when you share, you learn yourself, right? And I get to know other folks and see what's going on out there.
Awesome, man. This has been great. Always love chatting with you. You kind of keep my wheels turning and keep pushing the boundaries. Excited to stay in touch with you, brother.
Thanks, Apurva. Take
Thanks.
care.
Bye.